Hi, this is Isaiah Colton, live here again at Mega Insider Pro. We're excited to talk to you about a topic that I think can increase conversion immensely when it comes to working with outsourced ISA appointments and also approaching the for sale by owner expired market. And what we're going to be talking about, jumping right into it, is how to approach a for sale by owner and an expired listing when it comes to your listing presentation. And I know there's a lot of different philosophies and strategies out there, but it's important to make sure you have something tailored and something that's proven to work within the have-not-met marketplace and understand the psychology of an expired and for sale by owner. So to kick this topic off, I'm really excited to have Kim and Brian with us with the Batterman Group. They have a ton of experience in this industry, and I just want to get them to get a chance to introduce themselves and tell a little bit about yourselves, how somebody could get a hold of you if they have a referral, and then we can dive right into the topic from there.
Okay, perfect. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Kim Batterman with the Batterman Integrity Group with Keller Williams Realty. Been in the real estate business for 16 years, and we're very excited to be here. A very large portion of our business, probably close to half of our business, is for sale by owners and expired listings. So we've been doing this for a long time. You can get a hold of us at www.bigrestate.com. You can reach out to me by email at kimbatterman.com or Brian is brianbatterman.com. We look forward to being here with you today.
Awesome. So let's dive right into it. And so let's start off with the first question that we have prepared here. What is the mindset? Let's talk about the mindset of a for sale by owner and expired and how it's different than maybe working your referral base.
Well, to start off in our market, the mindset of a for sale by owner is pretty much they don't need a realtor. It's a hot market and they can sell it on their own. They don't need any professional advice or help along the way. The expired mindset in our market is basically that the realtor didn't do their job in marketing. It's not about the location. It's not about the condition. It's not about the price. It's all about the realtor didn't do their job. And so they get a bad taste in their mouth in terms of even talking with us. So it's a big difference in terms of approaching either a FSBO or an expired, because the referral is more warm and more open to a conversation, where it's very standoffish with the FSBO and expired, you'd say?
Yeah, and the for sale by owners do have that attitude that I can find a buyer. What they're not understanding is, on average, according to the National Association of Realtors, on average they have 3 buyers before they actually close. So you got to come to the table and help them identify why they need you. You really have to build that trust and help them identify why it's important that they work with you. Some of them get through it, but it can be a very frustrating experience. Appraisals, inspections, radon, 35-page offer to purchase can kind of get in the way sometimes. So as long as you keep that in your head and you recognize your value, you can work with them pretty easily. The expireds, on the other hand, Brian is right. They're angry, they're frustrated, they're disappointed. So you call them up and you just have to be prepared that they're going to say, I don't want to work with a realtor. Or in fact, it's usually realtor. You realtors are awful people, and I don't want to deal with you. So you just, roll with it. Have fun with it. Let them know you understand how they feel. You sympathize with them. You hear it every day, and that you have something better to offer. Okay.
And so with knowing their mindset, what's your mindset going into an expired and going into a for sale by owner? And what is your mindset different on depending on what market segment it is?
Well, it's always education. We're going, both our referrals and FSBOs and expireds, it's always about educating them. And so it's understanding more or less what their experience is, right? What their experience has been and how we can help them to overcome some of those things that were not so tasteful in their last experience. So it's easier with the referral. But FSBO is, we ask them things like, how many open houses have you had, and how many people came through those open houses? Well, 25 came through, and how many offers did you get? We didn't get any offers.
None. Yeah.
Well, did you keep track of the people that came through? Did you get their contact information so that you can work with them and reach back out to them? No, we didn't do any of that. So we're always kind of feeding them little nuggets and getting a feel for what their experience is, and then how we can augment that with a professional approach in helping them sell their house.
Yeah, and it's usually a 6 to 8 week approach. I think one of the best parts to the FSBO and expired, if you're a diligent individual, is put them on a plan and stay with them. Because if you just want to call them once or twice, it isn't going to work. You're probably not going to get that appointment, hold that appointment, and get that listing. But if you say, I'm going to call you every week, Isaiah, I hope that's okay with you because I've got a new tip, a new pointer. And in the middle, if you sell the property, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about that offer to purchase free of charge. I'll be here, I'll be available in exchange for you picking up the phone on a weekly basis, getting my tip, and staying in relationship with me, so that if at some point you feel it is important and necessary for you to hire a professional realtor to help you sell your house, I want to apply for that job. I want to be that person who comes to the table and applies for that job.
Yeah, and one of the things that we talked about actually in the webcast we did yesterday was the idea that if they don't see you as a trusted advisor and somebody that, like you think you put it in terms of education, Brian, that you're a resource to them, then you become more of a commodity, right? So
Absolutely.
And so then somebody that's there that can be a problem solver. And what I also heard is that you ask effective questions to really drill down on finding the pain and the motivation, and more importantly, what you can do to help them achieve their goal, right? So, and that's powerful, because I think that if we haven't sharpened our axe in a while, we can forget some of the fundamental sales skills, right? That it takes to work with somebody that you don't know. So.
Well, we have our favorite phrase is there any reason why? For sale by owners and expireds are in the no frame of mind. In fact, you guys gave us a referral once, and this guy's email is no@noway.com. So, they're in a no frame of mind. And so you want to get them to say no. So one of our favorite phrases is there any reason why? Is there any reason why we can't have a discussion about how we can help you get your house sold? Identify, what you didn't do, what didn't happen last time, so that you make sure that gets done this time and we help you meet your goal. And they usually say no, and then you go, great, when can you put that wood? That's
great, and because you simplify it. And one of the things that I think is that I just heard what you said too, from the psychology of going into that appointment, is you're making it more about a discovery meeting and having a conversation than about whether they're thinking about whether you're trying to get them to list their property over the phone or not. And sometimes I think we set off all these sales triggers with how we're talking. And so that's when they're like, oh, I'm not going to list my house. Well, I didn't ask you to list your house, right? That's what we're thinking. But that's our language. If we're not careful about what we're saying, we're basically, in their minds, subconsciously asking for a commitment when we're really not, right? So,
yeah, that's the biggest thing I took out of what Kim and Brian were saying, is it sounds like they're asking pointed questions to help that prospect clarify in their own mind where they're at, and also give them some nuggets, give them some things that they ought to be thinking about that maybe they haven't thought about yet, or maybe they haven't thought about in a while. And then most importantly, continuing to be there as a resource, looking at it as the long-term process, being a resource and being that trusted advisor like we were talking about yesterday, so that when the person is ready, or when they come to the conclusion they can't go it alone, they've already got that rapport and that relationship built, and they know where to go. Does that about sum it up, guys?
You bet.
Yeah, and you really can't be afraid to ask for their commitment to pick up the phone and continue this dialogue. Because they know that they need help, they just don't want to pay you, and they don't know how badly they need your help. So you have to help them understand that. So I just flat out ask them, some are going to say no, I'm not going to pick up the phone. That's okay, fine, then don't waste your time there, right? I mean, it's okay. Send them some mail or do something from that direction. But a lot of them will say, yeah, I'll pick up the phone. If you give me more information and you keep helping me, I'll pick up the phone. Now, if they don't, the next time I call, I'm able to say, hey, Isaiah, I reached out to you. This is the second call. I said I was going to stay in touch with you. Sorry, you're probably busy. You didn't have an opportunity, but I know you'll pick up the phone next week when I call, because you said you would, and they usually do.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, because what you're doing is you're building your own credibility as you follow up, and what I always say on what I've said on past webcasts, and I think that as a salesperson and a professional, you're trying to check a couple things off. Do they like me? Do they trust me? And do they perceive need for me? Do they need me? Do they perceive that I can help them? And if I'm not doing those things constantly, then it's just white noise to them, right? So, so one of the things I wanted to add, and I think also another important point is to what you guys said, and I want to make sure our viewers are catching this, is that if you understand their psychology, I think we're more likely to react different based on how they react different to us, because if we don't put ourselves in their world, it's impossible to show empathy, which is impossible to build rapport when you can't show empathy, right? So that's also kind of what I got out of this mindset, and I think that ties well into you know, my next question. And my next question is, why do you guys have a two-step process? And before you answer that, we have the privilege of working with and dealing with almost 600 agents across the country, all different backgrounds. And some of them hear this concept and they're like, no way, I'm going in there, I'm slamming it down, I'm closing it, I'm getting the listing. If they don't want to list now, I'm not going out on the appointment, right? And they got kind of like a harder qualification process. And what's interesting for your own edification, why I was so excited to hear you guys have a two-step process. We've actually studied and interviewed 50 of the top agents on our platform that convert at the highest level, okay? And over 90% of them use a two-step process with the for sale by owner and expired marketplace. And the ones that don't do well don't use a two-step process, the ones that don't convert well. And I thought that was really interesting. So that intrigued me. Why do you guys use a two-step process?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, there's a couple reasons. The biggest objection that anybody has as a for sale by owner or an expired is, why do we need you, right? And the second is, we don't trust you. You're a lousy salesperson. So your first appointment is to go in there to build that why, and going in and saying, you know, this is why we're here, this is why we're in the business, and it's building that trust, building that rapport. So we usually take a walk, Brian and I'll take a walk with the sellers, have them show us the house, tell us about all the features and the updates that they've done, give them a chance to start to feel comfortable, because that's what they want to talk about, right? They want to talk about how great their house is. And all the while we're doing that, we're talking about what we could do to feature that, what we could do to help them to sell that better, and what areas we could be marketing their home that the potential buyers, the target market buyer for their property, would be interested in and looking at. So we're talking through that with them, kind of selling throughout the whole experience, with the intention of getting that second appointment. Sometimes it's just on the phone, most of the time it's in person, to actually spend that time with them to go over the marketing plan and develop that relationship. Now, we give them a pre-listing packet, and that pre-listing packet contains our 14-point marketing plan, which really is 15 points. The last one is the bonus, is that we make a couple hours worth of calls every day, every one of our salespeople, to schedule some more for sale owners and list more expires, but we pick up buyers that way too. So we talk to them about those things, but we give that to them and say, you can use this. You're for sale by owner, or you're expired, but you're not yet on the market. You can use this 14-point marketing plan to market your property. And it kind of is one of our 2 days free that gets us in the door and starts to build that rapport.
And when you're going through oh, I'm sorry, Brian, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
When you're going through that process, I'm sure that it's safe to say that sometimes it doesn't turn into a two-step. Sometimes when they're asking the right questions and you're kind of sensing their motivation, is that fair? Or does that happen to you guys?
I was going to jump in with is that, you know, if we're talking about FSBOs, they don't perceive that they need a realtor, and the expired perceive that they don't want a realtor. So our first approach is to get in there and demonstrate what a professional realtor can do,
right?
And why our experience is different. And I'm going to say, to answer your question, Isaiah, we pretty much do drive to the two-step approach, because as we go through the first walkthrough, we're pointing out things that the seller should do to take action to sell the property, whether it be staging, whether it be decluttering, whether it be some painting or whatever. Pre-inspections, those kind of things. So our first meeting is usually the plan stage, right? And then we do the listing. We can even do the listing remotely.
Which we do a lot.
That's great. That's great. Cool. Yeah,
we've kind of identified most for sale by owners. They want you to bring a buyer. So they're showing off the property to you because they think maybe you can bring a buyer. And we use that approach. Would you pay 3% if we had a buyer, or one of our buyers agents had a buyer, and they ask for 3% so that they can help you move through that process? And they almost always say yes, they would do that. When we're working with the expired, we're trying to leave there with them saying, I learned more from you in this 1 hour I just spent than I've learned in the last 7 houses I sold. That's always music to Brian's ears.
That's awesome. That's really great. So when you're do you have a different approach with an expired than a for sale by owner?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So in Expired, we've asked for the appointment, and we've literally asked, we want to apply for the job. And we let them know that we do things differently, and we'll bring some stats and information to the table. So the first thing they do is get an email. The email talks a little bit about us. It's got some statistics about us. And we let them know that we're going to send a second email, and it's going to have an attachment. And we find that a lot of times the attachments end up in spam. So it's a really good excuse to send 2 emails instead of just 1, which helps a lot. We send that second email with our pre-listing packet so they can review it in advance of us showing up. So they know we're coming to the table to talk to them about listing their property and what actions they need to make the most money and sell it in the least amount of time. And they've gotten an email with our statistics telling we sell houses at 98.6% of the list price, 53 days on average, which is twice as fast as everybody else. So they get a few of those things so that they've got some nuggets to say, okay, maybe we should listen to these guys.
That's great.
For for sale by owners, it really is in fact, we could probably let our buyer's agents do it because it's more about show us the house,
Bring the buyer.
Get to know us. We're talking about, potentially we have 4,000 people in our database. Maybe we have a buyer, and building that rapport, getting into that relationship, helping them identify what they can do to sell their house. If they can, all the power to them. If they can't and they need somebody, we want to be available.
Awesome. Yeah. And one of the things that I think that is important for our audience, especially if you're newer, because we have a lot of mega agents on our platform that have never worked for sale by owners and expireds before. They've really focused on the referral business, and they're tapping into this industry or this niche for the first time. And I think it's important to really think about the psychology again. And if you notice what they said is they approach the expireds differently than a for sale by owner. And we find a lot of people, believe it or not, if they've never worked this, they're not even thinking about the difference. So, and it starts with our own psychology and our own approach. And because if you go in there with a for sale by owner and they're what I would call an early stage for sale by owner where they haven't experienced the pain of selling on their own yet, a lot of times it doesn't matter how good your listing presentation is. It doesn't matter how many homes you're sold. They could care less. And so if we're not approaching them with a different approach than an expired, which, like you said, it's more of like you're there to interview for the job. You can't use the same approach with the 2 different mindsets. So that's really good. And so
About the why, how, what?
No.
Okay.
What was it?
I asked Brian if you want to talk about the why, how, what.
Yeah, I mean, it's really part of the listing presentation, going in instead of puking all over them with why how you're the best and what you've got, all this stuff, but really talking more to the emotion of why you're in business, to help them, and why you're in business, to educate them.
Yeah.
Because when we look across the spectrum, particularly in our environment, half the people in our association didn't close a transaction last year, and the average for the rest of them is around 7.5. So, there's a gamut of professionalism and experience and education out there.
Pretty vast.
And we want to position ourselves in a place where we're the resource, the trusted advisor is the term you used.
Yeah.
So that they can see the experience, the professionalism, and it's not a pressure situation, right? It's you're going to decide, you're going to self-discover that you need our help.
That's great. Let's move on to the next question. So we talked about how you approach actually we kind of already covered this, how you approach the first conversation. We rolled right into that. So the first conversation basically is more of it's a discovery, it's building rapport. And walk us through a little bit about the second part of the conversation. What are you doing with the part 2?
Good.
I try to bring systems to the table because we've identified that most real estate professionals are sales people, not business people. You really need to transition your mindset, becoming a business person, and get some systems and processes in place. It helps you not only to always keep the work and expectations that people follow through, but it helps the buyers and sellers know what to expect, and that builds a lot of trust. They know, okay, she just told me, and he just told me we're going to do A, and then B, and then C, and then D. Now I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And let's move forward. So we're not just selling them on we're the greatest, we're the best, we're so awesome. You should definitely use us. We sold the most houses last year. I mean, honestly, nobody believes you anyway, even if it's the truth. They don't believe you anyway.
I've got a true story to that point, Kim, on from my time prospecting.
This is good.
The abridged version is it was one of the first weeks I was on the phone here. I didn't really realize that I shouldn't be spitting stats and talking about how my agent was the #1 agent in town. And I ran into this little old man, and he was somewhere in, it was either Mississippi, Tennessee. It was somewhere down in that neck of the woods. Yeah. And he said to me, he goes, "Son, I'm going to stop you right there because you're the 4th guy who's called me this week claiming to represent the #1 agent in town. And I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I know there can only be one #1, not 4 of you, and this conversation is over." And so there was my learning experience about it's about what can you do to be a resource to help that person rather than how many homes you've sold or what your sales volume is or what awards you've won or accolades or any of that stuff. So that's a really good point that you guys just made.
Well, when it comes to expireds, one of the things we like to, you can bring those things to the table a little at a time, right? We like to bring to the table the fact that the property expired for a reason. What was that reason? And there's only 4 things that sell houses, right? Price, location, condition, and marketing. That's it. It's one of those things. So we talk to them about, that's where we can bring some of our numbers to the table. So we say, we sold over 100 houses last year, so we know our marketing is working pretty good. We probably have double that in our pipeline right now, ready to move forward, in the next 12 months. So we're excited about that. So we look at it constantly and we change it up occasionally, but it's working, right? And we know the condition of your property because we've just gone through the whole thing and we've identified some things maybe you need to take action on. And we've got a VIP referral partners that can come and help you do those things if you need that help. So we're going to take action on those things and get that condition ship-shape in order. Now, the next step is going to be your location. You can't change that. So all we can do is play it up, right? You've got railroad tracks behind you. Okay, that. Let's make it sound great instead of ugly. But all we can do is play up the benefits to the location. We can't change the location. So what we're going to be talking about is price. We're going to do our best to get the best pricing structure we can. And then we're going to listen to everybody's feedback and identify price. Price is the only thing, the only trigger point that we have to play with. All the rest of it has already been designed.
That's true.
And that helps us with the price reduction. And
I was going to say it's a perfect segue into getting a price reduction. That's awesome. But what I like about your strategy too is that you're not just talking about price. You're helping them understand the other factors that go into it and how you've developed a proven process and system based on your track record. And you're not bragging about yourself. You're just telling them what you're going to do to help them, so they don't feel like you're just sounding like everybody else. And then you're also segueing that whole conversation into how really the only thing unproven is price. It's genius. I love it.
Yeah, and the other thing is we're pretty bold about saying that we're not going to take a listing that we don't think we can sell.
Yeah.
We're not in the business of buying listings to market for buyers lead generation. It costs too much. It's negative cash flow business, and if we don't think we can sell it and we can come to an agreement on how we're going to work to sell it, we're not taking your listing.
Yeah, and that's what a true fiduciary or a true advisor does, right? Is they're not gonna recommend something that is not gonna work,
right?
For everyone's reputation. So
that's right.
We have an assistant that makes calls every Tuesday afternoon to every single one of our sellers. So she doesn't want to hear their complaints because we can't move forward and get it sold.
There you go.
It's a lot of effort, and we also, when showing a schedule, almost 100% of the time. Every now and then we miss it because we're here doing a live interview or something, right? But for the most part, if there's a showing that gets scheduled, I reach out and I tell that agent what to say to sell the house. So they understand the features, they understand where they can get additional documentation. If they need a certified survey map, the real estate condition report, updates reports. We tell them where all that is so they can go out and get it, and then we give them some really queued up pieces of information so they can go in and sell that house. Because I know sometimes it's difficult to take that time to research in advance of the houses. And then if they give us feedback, most of our feedback's online. If they give us feedback online and it's anything other than not interested, if it's not interested, we leave them alone. If it's anything else, we call back again and say, hey, what's the deal? What didn't they like? What was the objection? Was price the objection? They didn't like the curtains, they didn't like the wallpaper. And maybe we can take care of those things on their behalf and they can move forward and buy the house. So taking action on all those things builds that trust and builds that reputation. It also helps us sell homes. So we use those lines and we use that communication, especially with expireds, because they do not trust you at all and they don't think we do anything for our money.
Right.
You've got to really help them understand why you get paid what you get paid.
I think that's a perfect segue into our last question here, Isaiah, about the follow-up system, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. So I want to make sure we're clear on this question though. When are you asking for the listing?
Well, it's not a, how do I want to say this? It's not, we get through our presentation and say, is there any reason why you wouldn't list with us today? I mean, I don't think we've ever said that.
No, I don't either.
It's more about a progression
Yeah.
into laying out a schedule to list their home.
Yes.
It's rare that we take a listing and we put it on the MLS tomorrow. I mean, there's always,
They're not prepared.
they're not prepared. We do professional photos. We do full-blown virtual walkthrough videos. We're big into videos, so there's a lot of preparation time. It's typical that we'll take a listing today and put it up on the MLS a week from today because of the things that need to get done. So our going in for the close is more about establishing that schedule, if that makes sense. If we're getting them to agree to, you're going to take action on this, we're going to take action on that, we're going to do the listing paperwork on Tuesday night over the phone, bam, 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 we've got the schedule. That's really our close. Yeah.
It's totally an instant sale, and it's very rare that people put up their hand and go, wait a minute. So you just talk about, here, the next step is we need to schedule a time for us to do our photos and videos.
Yep.
And you first have some staging that needs to be done. We'd like to introduce you to our staging Peggy. Here's her contact information. With your permission, I'll give her yours. And I wait. Say, okay. So now we know the staging is going to at least be a conversation. Maybe we recommend a pre-inspection, a little older house, and it'll help them with incentive for the buyer, as well as when they do a pre-inspection, they can take care of all the issues themselves instead of having to hire professionals to do those things, which costs them a lot more money. So we talk about how we're going to save them money by getting this pre-inspection. And then we've, of course, got to schedule that pre-inspection. We're scheduling things in their mind. Then the photo and video shoot is our way to segue back into the conversation. And once we have that scheduled in their mind as well, it's okay, so it looks like we want to list on October 15th. And you just kind of be quiet and they go, yeah, that sounds like a good day. Okay, great. So let's schedule the opportunity to get on the telephone. You can kick your feet up with your slippers and your glass of wine or beer, and I'll walk you through every single line of that listing conversation. We'll make some decisions. Brian's then going to dot all the I's, cross all the T's, send it off to you for signatures, and we'll go from there. They go, okay, so we schedule it.
Yeah, and I think what's powerful about what you're doing is, I think number one, you're setting the expectations both ways, right? Of what's going to happen, but also too, I think the reason why people don't buy or don't move or don't list, a lot of times they just don't know what to expect, you know?
Right.
Right. They know what to do.
They just don't know what to expect, and you're laying out in a clear-cut fashion, along with building value. So there's a whole lot of stuff happening in that approach, and it's not a hard sale. So it feels natural, you know. It's like a natural part of the process. So it's really great. Anyone who's listening to this, I think, in my opinion, that part could make or break the whole thing. How you handle the end of that approach, and probably prevent a lot less follow-up too. So because you're rolling right into the process. So good. So let's go right into follow-up. What are some of the important elements of your follow-up system?
I think the most important element is the consistency, and do what you say and say what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can simply say, I'm going to touch base with you at 2 o'clock on Friday to see where you're at with getting this painting done, and then you make that touch and you're consistent with it, you're in, right? If you falter on that at all, they're waiting for an opportunity to kick you out the door, right?
Yep,
so consistency is probably the biggest deal with all.
And nobody minds at all if you get to them in advance. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I've suggested to you guys, you've got some painting to do, and you've got a window that the gases have caused the window to be shoddy, so you're going to have to shop. So we recommend you make a phone call, you agree. We're going to follow up on Friday to make sure you made that phone call and you got your painting started. Well, now I see on Thursday that all of a sudden I have back-to-back appointments throughout the day, and I'm not going to get to them on Friday. As long as I call them on Thursday and say, hey, you guys, I apologize, I'm not going to be able to talk to you on Friday. I'll reach out on Saturday morning, or you can text me and let me know where you're at. They're always fine with that. If you wait till Saturday to call, though, you're out.
Right.
Yeah. The other piece of it is the other piece of it is that it takes 6 to 8 weeks for a FSBO, especially, to come around to the realization.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you need to be in touch with them on a regular and continuous basis. Find an excuse, and our excuse is typically to, like Kim said, if I call, will you pick up the phone and I'll give you another tidbit of something you can use, right? So there's always a hook in there for us to be able to make that call and to have that contact. But you got to make it, and you got to do it consistently. If you're dreaming about doing it the first week and then waiting 6 or 8 weeks, the guy who picks up the phone at week 7 is going to get the listing, right?
Yeah, it's so true.
It's really as simple as having a system and then consistently and rigorously executing on that system.
Absolutely.
And it does take, on average, for us on our team, 6 touches to get someone to book an appointment. So if you think you're going to call once and get an actual appointment where you can go in to sit down and talk to them about selling their house, doesn't usually happen in an appointment or in a call or 2. It usually takes 6 touches, and I might not get them all 6 touches, but I leave a voicemail. A fun phrase that we use, and some of our buyer's agents are especially good at it, is they say, I never want you to have to do my job, so I know you're really busy. I'm going to leave you this quick message today. Tomorrow I'll call you back, and I'll reach out to you every day this week until you finally have time to have a conversation. Don't worry about it. I'll just leave short voice messages. And when you have time, I'm looking forward to us talking. And man, you get those calls back pretty darn quick because they don't want you to call 6 days in a row. It's a great way to get into that dialogue with them. And if you call 6 or 7 times and leave a voice message, just a short voice message, and they never call you back or connect with you in any way, then just put them in and uncategorized in your database and move on.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And you're building rapport every single touch. Right. And that's the other thing is too. So by the time that you do get the appointment, they feel like they have a feel for who you are, what you're about. There's some credibility there because you followed up, and it amazes me when we have this conversation. And look, I get it, and I completely respect. Mega agents are really, really busy, and I can relate to it because we run our own real estate team and an expansion team across the country, along with 5 other divisions. And so we're crazy busy too. And just taking the time, just like for you guys doing this webinar, time is our most precious commodity in a lot of ways. But what's interesting to me is how many agents, even very successful agents, don't have this down. It never ceases to amaze me, and I think what's important too is that you can automate it, but one of the things mistakes that I found that we've done before in the past with our follow-up, you can't take the human touch completely out of it.
Right? No.
If you do, it's just not going to work. We have, and I think that actually this is a good conversation for millennials, especially that are just getting ramped up in their careers.
Right.
They may not see this video, but they want technology to do everything for them. And I'm technically a millennial. I just caught in that category. And so we talk about that a lot. Is we can't technology is awesome, and it provides a lot of great things and gives us leverage in a lot of ways, but we can't throw out things that we know have worked for centuries, and that's the human element, right? So I'm sure you guys probably have a good balance with your follow-up system.
Yeah, I think it's like anything else, right? When you are approaching the buyer, right? They hate realtors to begin with, and so if you're not human about it, right, you're gonna send them a postcard. I mean, how many times you get the question? You ask the question in Expired, what went well or what didn't go so well with your last listing? They say the realtor came in here, stuck a sign in the lawn, and we never heard from them again.
Right.
I mean, we hear that almost 100% of the time, right? So you've got to not only during the listing, during the run up to taking the listing, but also during the listing time itself, you got to keep in touch with them and that human touch to make sure you got that rapport going forward.
Yeah.
So we just finished a coaching session with our coach, and she said something that really hit me, and I'm going to share it. We're not doing it yet, but I know it's positive. She said, you've got to act like you're courting them. I mean, when you get into a relationship for the first time with somebody, you're courting that person, right? You do things right to build that relationship. And she said, one of the things that we're even not doing is, instead of just sending a pre-listing packet in an email, put it in a cool little box with DVD of our whole team saying, hi, looking forward to working with you, and a couple of suckers and a magnet that has your number on it. Have Uber deliver it to their doorstep, so while they're walking in the door, everybody's asking.
At work.
At work, yeah. Everybody's asking, what's that? Where'd you get that from? Well, I got it from my realtor, so you get them talking about their realtor as well. But then in addition to that, continuing that, and people think, well, I wouldn't even know what to say. The second thing you do after you've taken that listing is send a thank you card. We appreciate you trusting us. We're looking forward to working with you. Maybe the following week, all you send is a positive note, because after 2 or 3 weeks, they'll start to get a little negative on their shoulder. So maybe send out a positive quote in sales.
Yeah.
Or we have a guide to closing the property in the snail mail instead of just an email or electronic. Keep that relationship.
It's that human element makes a huge difference. That's awesome. All right, well, we're about out of time here, so give us three takeaways. I know we talked about a lot, but if we had to only pick 3 things to our audience, if they can improve their conversion within the context of this conversation, what would those 3 things be?
Well, I'll start. It's fun. It's a game, and play it like it's a game. But stay real. Stay very real with this process. Talk to these people like they're people, not like there's somebody you know more than they know. In fact, let them think they know more than you know, and just act, relax, and enjoy the game. I always think, if I can get that person to say yes to something, then I can keep getting that person to say yes. I know my value. I know I can help them. I know our team is going to be powerful to drive them forward towards their goal, but I've got to let them have that say. I've got to let them feel like they're in charge. They've made the decisions. So just sort of relax with this process and let them self-discover their way to need you as the realtor.
I'm going to say, put yourself in a mindset of coming from contribution always, right? We're here to educate. We're here to contribute to helping you be successful in selling your home. And probably the third thing is just the raw consistency, the process and consistency of follow-up, making sure you're diligent about doing that continually.
And have fun. Yeah. I mean, people hang up on me, right? And if you hang up on me, I call you right back and go, hey, I'm really sorry about disconnected. And they laugh so hard usually, they keep talking to me.
Yeah, don't take
it so
personal.
Right?
Yeah. No, yeah, don't take it so personal, because if we understand their psychology, we won't take it personal. It isn't personal. It's not a personal thing. I like it. Awesome. Well,
have fun.
This has been great. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say I'll mess up sometimes. I mess up. So I'm talking and I realize I'm not saying it right at all, and I'll just stop and say, well, I'm gonna count to 5 and I'm gonna take a breath, and then I want you to pick the phone back up and I'm gonna do it right. Phone back up, because they think it's funny that you actually did that. But don't. You're right. Just give yourself a little time to have some fun with it.
That's great. I think that's definitely important in this line of work, especially, is to definitely have some fun in the process, for sure. So awesome. Well, we're out of time, and I want to thank you. There's a lot of what I call golden nuggets on this recording, and I think if we played it back, I would encourage our viewers to watch this webinar a couple times over and over and just pick out what they think they can apply to their business. And I know everyone's got different backgrounds, philosophies, but we're talking about proven strategies where if you can figure out how to apply into what you're doing, you could, 1 or 2 of them, you could increase your conversion like that, almost overnight, and it almost feels magical. It's weird, but we've seen it, and that's why we pay attention and we do these things, because the little things make such a big difference. How you're approaching people, 1-step, 2-step, enrollment, all the things that we've talked about, follow-up. And so until next time, what are we talking about tomorrow? What do we got for tomorrow?
Tomorrow we're talking rapport.
Okay, so we're going to talk about building rapport tomorrow. Yeah. So make sure to join us. And again, thank you guys so much for sharing your knowledge with us.
You bet.
Thank you for having us.